Hello, hello, and welcome to Death Cafe with me, your Latinx death doula and bruja, Pastel Supernova. This is where I do my part to offer heart-led conversations about death, dying, and loss. I'll be sharing personal journeys, and also I'll be speaking with insightful minds about everything to do with the inevitable. In this episode, you are going to meet Eric. He is a lawyer and an artist at heart, a grown man who's had a full life so far and heading into a new chapter of his life. So he talks about what this new transition is like. Also, he talks about the loss of his parents. In this conversation, we focus on what it was like for him to lose his father, what he remembers, and also some tips that he has for anyone who has to navigate the medical system. And also, we fall into a quick little interview with me about what a death doula can provide. Welcome to the podcast. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Eric Letts.
I want to know, what is your experience with death, dying, loss?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah.
A big, nice open-ended question to
Major thoughts? First thoughts that come up?
I'm not religious formally. So that's one, I guess, element of my thoughts on death. It's it's the end. However, people that loved ones that have passed on, I carry them in my thoughts and heart and things like that.
How do you see that for yourself? Do you think once you're gone, it's done? Are you just molecules and cells, or?
That's where I am right now,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
it's you live on in memory, and whatever good works that you did might live on and be your legacy. But I don't at the moment, at least. I don't remember if I had before, but it's had any belief in an afterlife situation.
So does that make your actions in this life more important? If people are going to remember you as you are now, and this is your existence, this is your moment, does that mean more than what you do here
I don't know. I don't know.
to you?
Well, it means a lot to me. It's hard to judge it against something else, but we one time around is my belief, and we should make it count, for personal enjoyment and also for getting the projects that we want done move forward. And also, if you are in a situation where you have children, to help raise them and set them loose on the world so that they can survive and thrive. That's how I would view my the purpose of my existence. If that's an answer.
It is. It has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Does that scare you?
Wow, does that scare me? It's If you let it, every day is scary. It's the world is my view is the world's pretty much chaos. There's some systems, but we learned on in the last few years that there's no international law. And I'm a lawyer, and I know that the legal system is very imperfect and human made, and anything human made has its flaws. So everything's scary for sure, but you just frame it as everything's also exciting and an opportunity. It's been exciting meeting you
Likewise.
and yeah, and seeing different people and how they're living their adventure. And I think I try to be more, and as I get older, I try to be more purposeful in enjoying the process and making use of the limited time that I have. Not that I'm healthy and
We're
I
all
have
limited, though.
decade, yeah, for sure. I was listening to your podcast and you were saying that your mom had a gift for and
Predicting deaths.
predicting death, yeah. And
Yeah.
that would be a pretty scary or powerful thing to have. I remember
Yeah.
jokingly I had this chapter's lifetime membership, and then they one time I guess when they got bought by Indigo or something like that, they sent me a replacement card, and it had a expiry date on it, and I thought, oh, geez, I didn't want to tell my life insurance company about that. Um, so yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about your mom. If she ever tried to make a deal with a life insurance company for, not to joke about
No,
it.
she did always say nothing is eternal. She's like, everything changes, everything's about to go. I think she was excited because she knew, well, in her belief system, she had a knowing that there is more. So, uh, I guess that's why I asked that question of why does this mean more? Because based on my lived experience, I know that there are certain things I can only do here in this lifetime while I'm alive, but I also have a certain belief system that allows me to communicate or perhaps show up. Like, I really hope that should my niece ever need me, if I'm long gone, I will come out of the depths of somewhere and protect her.
I find the thought that having been, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and becoming more familiar with our own mortality makes me cherish time more, and try to, if I have a dream, it's, wanting to do something, whatever you want to do, your little hobbies or projects, pursue them, because there's not time uh, to necessarily do it in a decade or whatever. And as we're all decaying as well, so what I can do now is different than when I was 18. My body now is not quite as fit,
Mhm.
just despite everything. And so yeah, I think the outlook uh, of a finite existence is a motivating factor, and humbling too.
Yeah.
Not to say that some other person's belief isn't equally valid or whatever, but just that's how I operate.
Yeah.
And
Was your dad's passing your first uh, big hit, your first big loss?
uh, well, it was the most, I guess, uh, intimate, close loss, for sure. The first one, I mean, the previous, or a couple years earlier in 2019, my my then mother-in-law passed away through the maids program, so that was very a very intimate process as well.
Yeah.
And then uh, my dad had cancer, so his process was over a number of years, and he maintained cognitive abilities right till the last month or so. So it was it was a certain experience, and uh, definitely life changing. I found life changing myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. For the listeners, just in case you're not aware of what MAID is short for Medical Assistance in Dying. And this is a program that is available to people with life limiting diagnoses, and they have the option to have a medical practitioner come and help them end their life and end their suffering on a very specific day and in controlled circumstances. So that's how your mother-in-law chose to go.
Yeah. And she was in her 90s, and that was one experience. And then I had a friend in that interim period between that experience and my dad passing. A friend went through the process after a severe accident, and then I've had a couple clients do it too. I'm a lawyer,
right?
Just and one of them was a child, like, or not child, a young person in their 20s. So again, I wasn't part of their family or anything. I just was a fly on the wall, and it's a powerful experience to to see people's going through that,
Yeah.
and very personal choices. You can't cast judgment or anything like that, because you never know what you do in that same circumstance yourself, and there's more than one right path. There's no right path.
There are choices.
Yeah.
So were you ever present for one of those or any of those MAID programs?
No, I wasn't present at the moment.
Okay. So tell me about your dad.
Well, my dad was we're originally from Winnipeg, and he grew up in Winnipeg, and he was a surgeon, and I used to be head of surgery at CHEO, so it brought my family to the Ottawa area, and he was blessed, and his family as well, with being comfortable with the medical system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he understood what was, his treatment options, and he trusted the system, and he, was diagnosed. And first, my parents didn't share it with the family.
How old are you?
How old am I?
How old were you when that?
How old was I when that happened?
Yeah.
Well, it happened 2 years ago.
Recent.
Yeah. And so not long ago. And then but I've had friends go through a similar process where they don't trust the system, and then they're always looking for second and third opinions, and spending money to go to the States and things like that. And it not saying to trust the system or anything like that, but if you do have that faith in the system and you don't have to fight against it, it's a lot calmer, of a process. So luckily my dad did believe in the system. I mean, he got good treatment here in Ottawa and everything, and he was comfortable, and then he was fully functional up until October of that year, and like trading stocks even on late in October and things like that. And then his cancer broke the membrane of the brain, I guess it is, and then by early December he passed away. So it was just a short period that he was in. He lost his capacity.
Did he spend that time at home? Was he in hospice, or how?
Yeah, he spent up until last month at home, and we visited him a lot. And I have two brothers. One is in Ottawa, and the other one's not far away, just in Prince Edward County. So there's lots of family time. It's quite a process, and go quite often, and felt connected. I mean, just because we're talking death and the death process, it was interesting in that year where there was lots of family visits. I gained like 25 pounds because every day after work I'd head over to my parents and
Eat.
bring some food so my mom didn't have to cook, and yeah, and you'd eat. So it was that's one of the unintended consequences. So if you're going through that, if I was to give any little piece of advice, is to do some self-care and
Oh yes.
keep your which I didn't do, but tried to catch up later. But the process, however, I think it's appropriate to say it was a beautiful process, and there was lots of communication, and it felt very natural.
Yeah.
And so I feel very lucky because I know other, I've had friends that have had people pass away and they didn't have that connection and felt more sudden, or they didn't trust the system, like I was saying.
Yeah. You, for listeners, you are a white man in Canada, and it's different for different ethnicities in different countries, and even in this country. I don't have that lived experience, but yeah, you have certain facilities, and it's not that not to be trusted, but people definitely have different experiences. So I'm glad you had a beautiful one.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
important one to have.
yeah, and I appreciate that. It's just
Yeah.
the geography of the situation, and and him coming from the medical community did not help. You know what I mean?
No,
It
of
opens
course.
doors and
Yeah.
things I don't want to, you know, it's just the way it is, and ignorant of the little ways that it might manifest, where doors might be closed
Yeah.
that we got open, but no, it worked out, in that respect. So a painful process and emotional and everything
Of
else,
course.
but it was free of any administrative friction or distrust.
What a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we were lucky for sure.
What was your relationship with your father like before?
Well, we're a pretty waspy family, I think it's fair to say. Like we're maybe not as we were pretty independent, even though we lived in the same city, but we always knew we were there for each other and things like that. And he had lots and lots of projects he would always be engaged in.
Yeah, like what?
After his retirement, well, I think he wrote 4 books after his retirement.
Yes.
Of non-medical, like during his life, he wrote medical textbooks and published vociferously. But after his retirement, after his retirement from TIO, he worked in Abu Dhabi for another 5 years, just because insurance rules and things like that are a little bit different that allow surgeons to keep working.
Okay.
And then when he came back from that, he and my mom settled here in Ottawa, and he had like I say, he wrote 4 autobiography type books about his experience in different parts of his life, and pursued a dream of doing that. And he was involved in charitable organizations and things like that in his retirement. Always busy, right till he made the most of his life, and he's very involved with his grandchildren. He's got lots of grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
How many?
Oh, you're going to, well, he's got 10 grandchildren. Yeah.
Okay.
It's good I was able to do the math quickly.
Real quick. I was thinking, because I work at hospice, so I see certain people who have many, many visitors and others not so much. So it's helping me get a picture of how many people might be coming and going and calling and watching over each other. How was the dynamic when he was clearly starting to shut down? How did you guys all interact?
Right. Well, there was kind of a 24-hour attendance. It was the Elizabeth Briere, A+ people there, team. Really, fantastic humans that work there. After he lost, visible consciousness sort of thing, or I don't know the right words. We play his favorite music. He used to like the Lawrence Welk. Sorry, I
Okay.
almost forgot that. So we played old episodes of Lawrence Welk and Glenn Miller, and even played medical orthopedic lectures. That
Yeah,
was his life. He was
of
actually
course.
buried with his in his surgical scrubs,
All
because that
right.
was a big part of his life.
Of course.
He was well loved by both staff and his patients, and that was part of his sense of being. And Max, my little dog,
Puppy Max.
yeah,
We'll insert a photos.
yeah, would lay on him for hours on end, and like you're saying, some people didn't get visitors, so actually we shared Max with other patients that were there
Yeah.
in their final periods, and so he hung out with a lot of different people then in that period. It was I think they have those dog programs in some
Yeah.
hospice type things where they have pets or whatever.
I've
Can't
heard.
remember.
I've yet to see firsthand, but I've heard of them and or cats,
Yeah,
napping cats. But I think it depends because of medical equipment and all of the rest. But what I have seen so far is the personal pet come into that person's room and hang out with them there. So they can't live there. They can't be there 24/7, but they can certainly visit.
yeah. Well, it was funny because Max was well used there. He got a lot of attention,
I bet.
and he's a little guy that has no doesn't shed or anything, and
Could you describe him for the listeners real quick?
Max. Well, he's a little Yorkie that's got a strong personality. He's got anarchist tendencies. He's got his own Instagram account.
He does.
And yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with. It's funny. A woman in my building asked if they were thinking about getting a dog, and asked if a Yorkie is trainable. And it's like, no, it's not.
No?
Not totally. Well, I mean, he's house trained and everything like that,
Yeah.
but they're extremely manipulative, Machiavellian. They'll demand to go for a walk just to get a treat when they're coming back. Anyway, it's he's
I
a
think
personality.
that's typical pet behavior though. Pets will be pets and they know how to hustle.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
My point of view of Max is that he's the sweetest, most gentle, calm little cutie that weighs what, 2 pounds? Like
Yeah, he's
tops 5.
7 pounds.
7.
Yeah, he's always been 7 pounds. He doesn't overeat or
He's a
anything.
lean 7.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how he presents himself.
Yeah,
So you don't see the
the
dark
lies.
underside.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
So he is a sociopath.
yeah, so maybe that could be. Yeah,
I want to know if you and your siblings talked about your dad's like upcoming death, or
um,
did you only kind of go day by day? How did you navigate
well, our
the
conversations were mostly
illnesses?
about how to support my mom. Because
That makes me happy.
um, they'd had a 5-decade marriage, and yeah, so keeping her, she was going, obviously she was bearing a lot, and so that was the bulk of our conversations, was just making sure that she had the room to make the choices that she had, that she needed to make, and that she got the creature comforts of sleep, and wasn't overburdened by all the visits and things like that. That was the bulk of the conversations.
Right.
And then we time it, try to develop, somewhat of schedules, and eventually we did get uh, nursing care and things like that set up.
Right,
But
yeah.
there's some reluctance to do that because it feels, there's mixed emotions about that. It feels, doing it yourself is somewhat rewarding, but at the same time, it's very draining, and you don't have the skills. You
Yeah.
think that you're helping, but the professionals are light years ahead in the way that they have their techniques to do it in a comforting and efficient way. So, in retrospect, I'd probably get professionals in earlier,
Yeah.
you know, but navigating, even when we're, have resources and things like that, navigating the system is still difficult. You
Mhm.
don't know where to call, and you get to run around, and you don't understand the, what resources exist out there. And there are a lot of
Right.
resources.
So, do you have any tips on how to find them or special words to search or?
Well, the hospital social workers,
Mhm.
I think have, if I had to do it over, maybe have more conversations with them. I mean, they are excellent, and they guided my mom, not taking anything away from that. But I think asking more questions earlier would have saved some legwork
Yeah.
and stress. Yeah.
What
But
kind of questions?
well, just simple questions on what resources are available, and the exact phone number to call, and just the little logistical things, because as time goes by, the you get more sleep deprived, and you get more, things get more emotional.
Yeah.
So doing it earlier would probably be better,
Mhm.
so that you have those on hand, and maybe, this the have a death doula. I mean, that we I was ignorant that such a thing even existed.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's not I was not paid to say that, but it's just a natural part of the conversation, that maybe is that the sort of thing that you do, like you're the in between all these
Oh yeah.
systems.
Yeah. 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 Death doulas can show up. They have a purpose before, during, and after death for both the person who is dying and their loved ones. There are a lot of things that we can cover from, encouraging people to ask questions. I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that happens a lot. Sometimes it's about finding resources, sometimes it's about truly not understanding what the medical professionals are telling you and being embarrassed or thinking you'll look it up, but emotions come up and you're forgetful and
Hmm.
other things take precedence, or you just put it off and figure you'll find out, someone else will tell you, and those things don't happen. And there is absolutely zero shame in asking a lot of questions, but also a doula who is clear-headed and not dealing with the intensity of the emotions can write everything down or help you make a checklist before meeting up with the medical professionals or the whoever, to help you set up for very important meetings. They can help people grieve. It sounds so far like your family really like held each other. Some people, when they're afraid or grieving, will cause fights, any kind of distraction to keep from looking at what's really happening and how they feel about them.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm a family lawyer, so I've been around the block, and during these family transition times, whether it's divorce or a death. Everyone's sleep deprived. There's stresses about finances sometimes. There's
Yeah.
a whole host of different emotions of of loss, of guilt, of you name it. You're going to feel those emotions, and you mix that all together with a little bit of family history.
Yeah.
Then yeah, it could be an explosive situation sometimes. So you have to and I guess that's why I was making light of gaining weight and self-care, but self-care is important for everyone involved, I think.
Yeah.
Making sure you're taking care of yourself and getting enough sleep, and so that you can help each other. And so with the death doula, who do you consider your client, or do you put your mind to that so
Whoever
much?
hires me.
Like yeah.
So if somebody who is dying hires me, uh, we talk about what they want. So I'll advocate for that person if that person comes first, basically, but I am present with their loved ones.
Hmm.
And so it's just about navigating what the person who's hired me wants. If they want to be spoken for, or if they want certain people to not come visit them, if they want me to help their family or their loved ones navigate the grieving process post, then we can talk about that. We can start having meetings. We can set up time to kind of access a way to express thank yous, memorials.
Hmm.
Sometimes we get blocked up with all the things we want to say, and everything just kind of gets stuck. So I can create settings that help people express, whether it's artistically, verbally, by being there, hand holding, and that's not just me doing it, but allowing people to take the time. And if that means I go make lunch
Hmm.
while Bestie is bedside to actually have some quality time, then that's what I do.
A lot of it seems to be, and again, I've limited, is just the nitty-gritty staging and logistics and things like that. Like you say, making a sandwich to give someone time, and
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we can cover as doulas, but companioning is the number one thing that I've been required to do. People want from me, and it's my favorite thing to do. So that is basically being a little bit of everything.
mhm.
And you create your priorities and your boundaries with your client. This is something that is all talked about like right away.
Yeah.
These are so that there are no surprises and nobody, so that I know I'm not overstepping, and also they know what I am willing and not willing to do, or where my fortes lie.
And do the people, like, what's the demographic of the people that seek out the death tool? Are they more people that are isolated and single, perhaps, or are they larger families, or how would you describe it?
No,
Mhm.
both. I get both. I get predominantly women,
Mhm.
and or women who want a doula for their the men in their family. Men naturally, I say naturally, but I mean perhaps they've been raised this way, really like the environment that I live in. Men are kind of expected to hold their own a lot of the time. So there is often a loving woman who knows that somebody will need more time and will not seek it. And
Mhm.
so then I am kind of put in their direction so that they can let go. because everybody in general just has to be very put together. They feel the pressure to be very, on top of things, even though this huge life moment is happening. They don't know how to create time for it. And so often my clients are women who will either use me for their family or for themselves, or son or husband, to go talk to and remember to express.
It sounds like it's like it's like a gift to their loved ones.
I think it is, yeah. It gives them peace of mind too. You think about the people you love, and in a different podcast, you will see me and Eric talking about wills, and we talk about how that is a gift, right? So but it gives you peace of mind knowing that you have provided that. So it also helps them relax into their dying process. I can help people write their memoirs. I think it's awesome that your dad got to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think about it just at the very end.
Yeah. So is there a lot of storytelling?
So much storytelling.
Yeah.
So much. I really just listen. The things I've heard and seen, and they will fuel my memory banks always. It's my favorite books, like always, have been biographies, autobiographies, or fiction written in that form, or letter writing. Which is basically this, but in real life.
Yeah. My grandma lived to be 104. Ooh. And she so when I was going to university, I lived in the same complex as her. And when she was 90, she was living on a farm in Manitoba with one tap of water and an outhouse. Oh. So, and that she used to have, when I was growing up, she had a well. And when I was, I don't know, 10, 12, they brought a tap inside of her house, and then she had a bucket underneath to empty it. So just painting the picture of a very rustic existence. And she raised 5 daughters and a son there. Ooh. So her children said, well, you can't stay the winters out there, and brought her into the city in the winters. And I think the second winter she was here, she got hit by a car, and yeah, and very, broken spine and everything. And she was on, in hospital for at least 6 months, and the family gathered and they took her off the the ventilator machine or whatever, and she nothing happened. She just kept stayed alive, and she got better, and she made it back to her apartment. She never made it back to the farm, but then she lived to maybe about 102 when she was cleaning, and she fell and broke her hip while she was trying to get a fly from behind the curtains. And that's the time I was living in the same complex, and she called me, asked me over for tea, and I said no because I was studying or whatever, and it's not unusual for her to do this. And then she called 3 more times that day, so I knew something was up, and I went over, and she was lying on the floor and didn't want to get help. So anyway, she went into a care home. And where I'm going with this, sorry, you can edit it out if it's too long, but when she was 104 in this care home in her final months, she was talking about her fiance and having dreams and visions, who had died in the First World War.
Right. He was coming to see her?
Well, she was having visions, but she actually thought he was alive, and she wanted me to write to hospitals in Belgium in case he was blind and was still alive. And it seemed fanciful and things like that, but it was very real for her.
Yeah.
And she stayed, she was cognizant right through her to the end. She never forgot one of her great grandchildren's birthdays or anything like that. But she had these visions and wanted to tell these stories about when she was so I learned more about her, in that period than ever
Mm-hmm.
before. And she, left the farm to go to university. But then when the war started, First World War we're talking, she had to come back and help on the farm. And then her fiance died over there, and da da da. And she never got back to the city and to pursue a career and everything. But again, like you say, is the storytelling in those final months was more than the previous 102 years or whatever.
Yeah, there. It's a very magical time, and if someone allows you into their dying process, this is an honorable place. It's very, very special. And like as a doula, I think as a relative stranger coming in to be able to listen is uh, I put that in the highest regard for myself. But I think for my clients, it's also helpful because I'm coming in with no background story, so they can be real with me. There's no judgment. They don't have any expectations placed on them. They can just be and just talk and just let it out or not talk. But most of the time, so far with me, people talk and tell stories. And, it's, I think it's just sometimes easier to speak to somebody who is relatively anonymous but trustworthy.
You experience that in life when you get the right person on a transatlantic flight, and
Yes.
you end up, you could have 10 flights, and only one of them you have a rapport with that person for whatever reason. I think it's fair to say that you have an aura of openness or something like that. Yeah, you'd be very easy to talk to. I mean, you wouldn't be doing podcasts if you weren't easy to talk to, I think. But,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. You have the what do you say? It's a gift or aura or whatever. Not every person does.
I have always gotten, even from from my childhood memories, people saying things like, "Oh, I don't usually say these things to anybody," and then they spill, and that's special. It is special. It's very cool.
Yeah, probably good for that career. Good for a spy maybe as well, or you could have
Secret
all kinds
agent.
of different career options for you.
Could have been a lawyer.
Oh,
And
so many, and being a death doula would be pretty rewarding, I have to say.
it is. It is.
You know,
It's a more well known in small communities or traditional indigenous communities. There's always someone in this world,
yeah,
less so, but coming more and more.
yeah.
I do want to turn it back to you though.
Back to me.
Yeah. And I love that you and your siblings focused on your mother. Uh, but at some point, you were still a son losing his father.
Hmm.
So what was that like?
Well, I'm probably in that. I think we were. I can't remember if we were talking on here before about it taking 2 years for you to process your mom's
Yeah.
passing. I don't know if I have processed it yet, because at the time, also, I have a son at home, and having to, get him to baseball practices and violin lessons and everything like that. So all that was going on, and
Yeah.
life and having to, work and make
Mm-hmm.
ends meet and et cetera, et cetera. So, but I have trouble, like some people do, I guess, of putting my own needs first. So, during those that period, it's just so hectic because there's just so many things to do, and it's so many things for me to do. I know my mom obviously had 1,000 times. I don't want to take anything away from her, but just getting across the city and helping and doing what you can, and keeping all the ducks in a row and things like that. It's all encompassing, or I don't know, maybe it's a double-edged sword. Maybe you make it all encompassing so you don't have to deal with the emotions. You keep yourself busy. That I'm not sure. It's probably a bit of
100%.
both,
Yeah.
and I'm probably still in that mode to uh to some extent. Like I, always keep myself busy, and so I think that, like you were saying, I don't speak for you, but kind of hit you a couple years after, and I think
Yeah.
that maybe I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
still, you know, I have an awareness, but maybe I'll have even a greater awareness at some point,
Yeah.
if that's fair.
When you're ready, grief will show up in however you can take it in, however you can accept.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you don't know if it ever is going to come. Sometimes it slams you like
Yeah.
an invisible wall coming at you.
And it was like, I don't want to say I'm lucky, but I don't know the right, I don't know any other word to describe it, blessed, lucky, whatever. That it was a slow process ahead of time. So there was
Yeah.
grieving during the lead up, which
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
a difference than in other situations where someone is lost suddenly, unexpectedly, and then all the grieving has to come like a
Mm.
tidal wave
Yeah.
afterwards, maybe. But
Yeah.
not that I'm any expert on uh, how things go.
It's different every time. So we are all non-experts, no matter how many times you see it. It's also fair to say that the grieving process doesn't always have to look like boohoo cry, I'm going to be in the basement. Sometimes, you know, you are broken, and other times, if you have a supportive family, if you've got knowledge, if you feel like you're in trustworthy hands, if all the things are set up in a specific way that help you
Mm-hmm.
be at ease and present, then that really switches how you're going to grieve. It's also a blessing. That's why you do want things to be in order as much as possible so that you're allowed, like that is why you should feel cradled, because you can really just accept whatever's going through you. And if that's the case, then perhaps you don't have to deal with a surprising amount of grief in the future. How did your dad face everything?
Well, that's a question that I wish I could more answer. He was, I think he cared about other people and made other people comfortable. And he was, kept his humor and his humanity with him throughout. This was just, the whole Gaza thing was just starting. And when he went through medical school with the military, and his first posting was as a peacekeeper in the Middle East.
Oh, wow.
So I think he had extreme sadness about the war starting. He expressed that, and but uh, but he was always very interested in people, and so he'd ask, keep abreast, make the grandchildren feel very important and thought about, and yeah, he definitely kept a sense of humor throughout. It wasn't like a somber or self-centered process. That was for him. I don't want to cast aspersions on any other one's process, but that's what we got to enjoy.
Yeah.
And
Did he have any spiritual beliefs, or was he like you?
I wish I could. I don't think so. No.
Hmm. Well, this is something I've asked a few people before, and I call it last words, but take this in the most abstract form. So, do you have any last words for either any person or relationship or versions of yourself that you didn't have back in the moment?
Well, where I am right now, I really wish that I thought about my mortality a little more actively, a couple decades ago, and not to have more planned life, but have not just rest on, these are on my bucket list or whatever you want to call your to-do list. I would have been much more active in pursuing things that I'm interested in, as opposed to putting them on the back burner. I always felt like I would put myself second. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I put myself a little more without taking away anything from my kids or anything like that or family. I try to be more present for myself, and that's what I'm trying to do now.
My dad's full name was Robert Mervyn Letts, but he went by Merv to all of his family and all of his colleagues and students.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a really fun process.
And there it is. If you were watching this talk on YouTube or Spotify, you will notice that Eric and I were speaking in person and yet still addressing the camera specifically, almost as a mirror. And this is a technique that you can use whenever you're approaching a difficult conversation and might feel a little antsy about making eye-to-eye contact, or if you know that you're going to speak with someone who is either not used to talking about something a little difficult or awkward, or someone who's downright avoidant. It is quite helpful. I encourage you to give it a try. If you want to get a hold of me regarding grief coaching or any of my death doula services, including vibrational healing, contact me at deathdoulapastel.com. If you have a story to share and want to speak with me, or if you have topics for discussion that you'd like to listen to, please send me an email at info@pastelsupernova.com or find me on Instagram at deathdoulapastel. This is an indie podcast, so please tell your friends, rate, review, share. Above all, your word is everything. So your support is very appreciated. That's it. I will be posting another conversation in 2 weeks, and until then, blessings and respect.